My first thought was just, something's not right.
A toddler bruised.
I mean, my stomach just dropped when I saw him.
A mother's guilt.
I was in shock, almost like I just...
And a babysitter's explanation Elizabeth Mezzi didn't believe. Her son Maddox apparently pushed so hard into a coffee table by the babysitter's toddler while the babysitter was attending to other children.
It didn't look like something a 2-year-old could do.
The babysitter texting, explaining how she also punished her child after claiming he pushed Maddox. I spanked him 3 times where it left handprints. But then, 3 hours later, more text messages of another injury. This time, she said Maddox was bitten on the ear.
I just think about what he probably went through inside his head. You know, I think about that I wasn't there to protect him.
Do you blame yourself for that?
And not knowing and hoping it's not abuse, I mean, it's just a really difficult situation for parents to be in.
Mariam Mohammed is the director of child advocacy centers in Ohio. She says it's important to look for the signs of abuse, like unexplained or chronic bruising, especially on the soft parts of the body. With Maddox, the babysitter alerted his mother, but that's not always the case. One of the worst effects on children, Mohammed says, is when suspected child abuse goes unreported.
We want to make sure that that child is not put at any more risk, is not going to have any post-traumatic symptoms, is going to be receiving the mental health and victim services that they actually need towards healing.
Before that day, Maddox's parents never saw any physical injuries. They took him to a Knox County hospital. The exam, doctors say, proved suspicious for abuse, and a recommendation Maddox be evaluated at Nationwide Children's Hospital. Doctors found moderate bruising and bite marks, and with multiple stories of how the injuries happened, the hospital referred the abuse report to Knox County Children's Services.
I think about it every single day.
Over the next few weeks, police and children's services investigated. According to this police report, the detective believed the babysitter who cooperated with the investigation was truthful when she denied causing the toddler's injuries. Still, given the gravity of the incident, the report was sent to the prosecutor.
Show me the puppy. Good job.
Meanwhile, Maddox has returned to a life at home. Then in March, a letter from Children's Services about the report of possible child abuse. Knox County confirming the medical evidence and substantiating that physical abuse had occurred. Our calls to the babysitter weren't returned, and no one came to the door. So we went straight to the prosecutor for answers.
How seriously do you take a case like that?
These are cases we take very seriously, and we try to react to them as quickly as we can.
Prosecutor Chip McConville says just in Knox County, more than 24 reports of child abuse are reviewed every year for potential criminal charges. In Maddox's case, no charges were filed against the babysitter.
And we have to look at whether or not we can prove a crime was committed.
In one case in Mount Vernon, prosecutors proved a baby's burns could not have been an accident. It was so bad, the 5-month-old's leg had to be amputated. The mother's boyfriend, who was watching the baby, was convicted and is now in jail. That's unlike Maddox's case, where the injuries weren't considered severe, and how it happened is open to question.
There were some good-sized bruises on this child's face.
Still, the prosecutor says with children too young to speak and only the babysitter's explanation, there's no definitive way to know what actually happened to cause the injuries in question. It's a common issue in cases involving allegations of abuse.
So it comes down to a proof issue.
It absolutely comes down to a proof issue.
To avoid questionable situations, there are ways to better protect. Consider having at least 2 adults babysitting small children, especially when there are several children present. And find out how a caregiver will monitor the interactions between them. Vet caregivers and child care centers. That can be done online through the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. Request background checks and manage children's internet exposure and whom they're interacting with.
Where's the tree? Good job.
Maddox is healed and healthy now, but it hasn't erased the images his mom thinks about every day.
That just makes it even harder. That I probably will never know exactly what happened.
Since last summer, we found 87 child care centers have been closed or licenses revoked, suspended, or awaiting a hearing decision because of serious safety violations. This stack of paperwork is just part of the cases against one man and his property management company. He denies allegations of discrimination, but the Ohio Civil Rights Commission disputes that. Tonight, we're sharing the public records and the recordings with you.
But it's my property and I don't give a f. I'm not going to destroy my property.
He's the center of several complaints and accused of making racial remarks, all now audio evidence before the Ohio Civil Rights Commission.
I'm going to start on a campaign of getting rid of every black tenant out there, every single one.
His name is Aram Gosdanian. Property records show he owns these apartments along Huron Avenue in West Columbus. They're just a few of the places run by his company, Abbey Hill Realty and Management, which has a D+ rating with the Better Business Bureau.
I've stepped up our maintenance drive-throughs and drive-bys of properties to 2 times a day from 1 a day.
That was him in 2012 after a fire at one of his other properties. 3 years later, a former employee claims he started recording conversations with his boss.
I need white tenants. That is my absolute stipulation.
The former worker alleges he was instructed to engage in discriminatory actions, refusing to lease to African Americans or hire them, and even evict some, specifically at these apartments.
I've got to turn that property back to white. No black tenants, or we're going to lose control out there. Obviously, we're already losing control.
6 on Your Side obtained the recordings from public records with the Ohio Civil Rights Commission. We found 2 cases against Gosdanian, from employee discrimination to housing discrimination. His filed response says the words, if taken out of context, may indicate discrimination, but the facts outweigh recordings and establish Gosdanian did not engage in discriminatory actions.
If we put in more black families out there, we're going to it's going to become the East Side overnight.
It's what we call in your face. Yeah. Those are the type of cases that we want real bad.
G. Michael Payton has been the executive director of the Civil Rights Commission for decades. He says this sort of language is damaging to people.
These f***ing niggas are so ungrateful in Old Village.
Those are very, very piercing words.
Time to pay Gosdanian a visit at his business.
This is Brooks Jarosz, ABC 6. We're here to talk to Mr. Gosdanian.
All right, let's go around back. You know where Aram is?
No.
Because this is his truck, right?
Yeah.
We know he's in there.
Then this woman showed up saying she had an appointment.
Oh my God.
With the office locked and appearing closed, we let her hear one of the recorded messages.
You don't treat people like this. Ooh.
In an email, Gosdanian referred us to his lawyer. The attorney explained there's no evidence discriminatory practices have occurred at Abbey Hill Realty and Management properties. Documents reveal the same lawyer told the commission words are words, and his actions as a whole do not show discrimination.
That's ridiculous.
6 on Your Side visited the property and let tenants listen to some of the audio evidence in the case.
I need white tenants.
That's the first time I heard that. Wait till I see him.
What do you want to say to him?
Why do you gotta treat us like this? Like scumbags.
I don't want any more. No more. None. We are a racist company. That's going to be my logo.
What goes through your head when you hear that?
Oh my God, racism, that was totally unprofessional.
That type of thing is not going to be tolerated.
The commission initially found probable cause for discrimination, and the case will now undergo further review and potentially court proceedings. Gosdanian could face fines or other sanctions, but paperwork shows some witnesses claim Gosdanian has not been discriminatory, and the property owner denies treating anyone unfairly.
I know everything I just said is totally illegal, but it's my property and I don't give a f. I'm not going to destroy my property.
We just learned the Ohio Attorney General is planning to file a lawsuit against the property owner and his company. Then the discrimination case will move into common pleas court. Of course, we'll keep you posted. We dug into one apartment complex's books and uncovered public money flowing and funding vacant apartments for months at a time.
This is the outside, and for some apartments, this is the inside, empty, under renovation, or looking like this for months.
But there's nobody in that apartment. Nobody lives there.
Washington Square 2 in Newark is government-assisted housing. They're multifamily units run by Beacon 360 Management. Lisa Karkin used to be an assistant manager there. She says she was fired after raising questions about company practices.
I think it's because I, uncovered a can of worms.
The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development helps those in need. Hundreds of dollars paid in monthly subsidies to families, covering some of the cost of rent and utilities. But these internal documents show federal payments still coming into the management company in the tenant's name months after some moved out.
That's a lot of money being wasted, basically.
Court documents show a single mother lived here and illegally supplied electricity to another apartment. She was forced to leave and threatened with eviction. We tracked her down nearly 10 months later.
I can't find an apartment because of it, and I don't know what to do. I just want help.
Court paperwork shows Kirsten Steele agreed to move out by the end of October. She's now living blocks away from her old apartment at her grandmother's place.
We all sleep on this air mattress.
She has 2 kids.
It's crowded.
And a baby on the way.
It's very crowded.
Internal records provided by our whistleblower show Kirsten was getting a subsidy of $977 for rent and $155 for utilities provided by HUD each month. But this screenshot shows even after Kirsten moved out in October, Beacon 360 Management continued to receive payments in November, December, January, February, and March. In total, at least $5,662 listed under her name.
That's ridiculous. That's something they shouldn't do. People depend on that money. It's wrong. Something needs to be done about it.
6 on Your Side Investigates dug deeper after Lisa provided more screenshots. She even filed a complaint with HUD about what she says is potential fraud.
Because this is government money that could go to people that actually need it.
Another residence ledger shows she moved in 2014, but court documents prove she was evicted in August 2016. Still, apartment records show managers kept collecting her government assistance, $1,125 a month for rent and $119 for utilities, totaling more than $7,800 for 7 months. And we found a third renter who no longer lives at Washington Square. Court records confirming that, and HUD overpaying at least $2,200 over 2 months.
What do you think when you see all of that money going to them?
Breaks my heart.
So who is living there? These pictures show at least 5 addresses sitting empty, some undergoing renovations, all while these screenshots show government money flowing in. When Lisa saw this, she immediately emailed her bosses asking why and saying, "This is very alarming to me." The property manager responded saying a property is entitled to receive subsidy and rent until the move-out is complete. We checked and HUD told us the maximum time an apartment can sit empty and still receive money is 60 days. But we found some have been vacant for half a year.
What does that say to you, the fact that they are getting that money and that unit's sitting abandoned or vacant?
That they're frauding the government, or, whatever the case may be. It's just wrong.
HUD documents show Washington Square 2 was 94% full during an inspection in July 2016. When we asked Beacon 360 specific questions about collecting subsidies for people who no longer live there, we were hung up on. We were then asked to submit questions by email. The only response was this, saying HUD conducted a thorough investigation and we consider this matter to be closed.
But I would hope that they know that this is wrong and they shouldn't be doing it.
6 on Your Side Investigates went to HUD requesting records and asking questions. The director for the field office in Columbus saying there was an extensive review and a need for corrections. It was administrative and the result of a staffing change. It's now a non-issue and not criminal, and Beacon 360 has reimbursed HUD and taken steps to prevent this in the future.
I don't even know what to say. Something just needs to be done. They need to be in trouble.
HUD has not referred anything to the Office of Inspector General, but Lisa has filed another complaint. Meanwhile, Kirsten is working full-time to care for her family and hoping for her own home soon.
I want to be on my own. I want to be with my family. I want to have my own apartment again. That's just all I want.
Beacon 360 Management has not responded to our latest emails with questions. We have filed a public records request with HUD to better understand how the government agency handled the complaint alleging misspent money and fraud.